The atmosphere on the set of Entertainment Tonight was expected to be calm and celebratory when Johnny Depp arrived for what was supposed to be a relaxed, promotional interview. The show had been teasing the actor's appearance for days, highlighting his long-awaited return to Hollywood's spotlight following years of public scrutiny, court battles, and a cautious but clear resurgence in his career. The host, Kevin Frazier, known for his poise and professionalism, was set to lead the conversation. Yet, what was meant to be an easygoing dialogue took an unexpected turn when tensions began to rise between the two men, ultimately leading to a moment that left both the studio and viewers stunned. Johnny Depp entered the studio with his usual mix of rock star nonchalance and old Hollywood mystique. Dressed in layered scarves, worn leather, and tinted glasses, he exuded the same mysterious aura that had made him one of Hollywood's most beloved and unpredictable figures. For weeks, Depp had been making selective public appearances, film festivals, music performances with his band the Hollywood Vampires, and occasional press events, carefully shaping his comeback narrative. This appearance on Entertainment Tonight was intended to be part of that effort, an open, introspective conversation about his creative rebirth and the next chapter of his life. However, beneath the calm surface, there was a sense that Depp was cautious, perhaps even defensive, about how far he was willing to go when it came to questions about his personal life. The first few minutes of the interview were smooth. Kevin Frazier began by discussing Depp's recent film, his work with new directors, and his desire to focus on storytelling that meant something deeper. Depp spoke softly, thoughtfully, often pausing before answering, as though weighing every word. He talked about art, the power of redemption, and how he had learned to appreciate silence and solitude. It was reflective, poetic, and precisely the kind of interview his fans expected, until the tone shifted. Frazier, known for his ability to balance warmth with directness, began steering the conversation toward Depp's public controversies. He referenced the actor's legal battles and the divided public perception that followed. The question was phrased carefully, but it hit a nerve. "Johnny," Frazier said, "a lot of people have been talking about how you're rebuilding trust with fans and the industry. How do you respond to those who still have doubts about who you really are now?" Depp froze for a brief second, leaning back in his chair with a half-smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. The room grew noticeably tense. "Who I really am now," Depp repeated slowly, his voice carrying a mix of disbelief and irritation. "I wasn't aware that I needed to audition for humanity again." His tone was sharp but controlled, yet it carried enough edge to make the audience and crew exchange uneasy glances. Frazier attempted to clarify, explaining that he meant no disrespect and was only addressing the public conversation surrounding Depp's return. But Depp wasn't letting it go. "The thing is," he continued, "people like to build you up, then tear you down, and when you survive that, they demand you explain yourself again and again. I'm not a politician. I don't owe anyone a slogan or a confession. I'm an actor. I tell stories for a living. That's where my truth is." His words were articulate, but the undertone of frustration was unmistakable. The exchange might have subsided there if not for the follow-up. Frazier asked, "Do you feel any responsibility, though, for how your image has changed? For how some of your actions have been perceived?" That question seemed to ignite something in Depp. He leaned forward, his expression hardening. "Perception," he said, almost spitting out the word. "That's the problem, isn't it? Perception has replaced reality. I've lived long enough to see rumors printed as facts, and facts dismissed because they weren't dramatic enough. If people want a villain or a hero, they'll make one whether the story fits or not." Frazier, maintaining composure, reminded him that Entertainment Tonight had always prided itself on fair coverage. Depp laughed dryly, a short, humorless chuckle that seemed to slice through the tension. "Fair coverage," he echoed. "I've seen what's fair in this business. It's all entertainment until someone bleeds. Then it's still entertainment, just more profitable." At that point, the interview had shifted from a discussion to a confrontation. The crew sensed it too. Whispers rippled behind the cameras, and the control room reportedly went silent. Frazier tried to steer things back to the film, asking about Depp's creative process and his return to directing, but the mood had already turned sour. Depp's responses grew curt, his sentences clipped. "I create because I have to," he said. "It's survival, not publicity." When Frazier pressed one more time about whether the experience of public scrutiny had changed him as a person, Depp's patience finally snapped. He took off his glasses, leaned in close, and said, "You know, Kevin, I've done this dance for years. You invite me here to talk about art, and somehow it always circles back to gossip disguised as journalism. You want a headline, not a conversation. I'm done feeding that." The studio fell into an uneasy silence. Frazier, still calm, responded that he was only giving viewers a chance to understand Depp's perspective. Depp, however, was no longer listening. He stood up abruptly, adjusted his jacket, and muttered something under his breath that microphones barely caught, something along the lines of, "Same old circus." The producers quickly tried to de-escalate the situation, signaling for a break, but the damage was done. Depp had walked off the set before the segment could properly wrap up. In the aftermath, reports circulated that Depp's team had requested the segment be edited before airing. Some insiders claimed that Frazier and Depp had a private exchange afterward, where cooler heads prevailed and the actor apologized for the outburst, explaining that he felt ambushed by the line of questioning. Others suggested that Depp didn't regret it at all, that he felt he had simply spoken his truth after years of being misrepresented. Either way, the footage became one of the most talked about moments of the week. Behind the scenes, staff members described the incident as electric but uncomfortable. One producer noted that the tension had been building long before the cameras started rolling. Depp's team had reportedly sent over a list of topics that were off limits, including anything related to his past court cases or personal relationships. While Frazier's questions didn't directly violate those terms, they skirted close enough to provoke a defensive reaction. Social media lit up within hours of the taping. Some fans praised Depp for standing his ground and refusing to engage in what they saw as media manipulation. Others criticized his behavior, arguing that walking off was unprofessional and disrespectful to Frazier, who had maintained his composure throughout. The divide mirrored the larger cultural split surrounding Depp's public image, a mix of admiration, skepticism, and deep emotional investment from both supporters and detractors. Frazier, for his part, handled the fallout with characteristic restraint. In a brief statement later that day, he said, "My goal is always to have honest conversations. Sometimes they're difficult, but that's part of the job. I have tremendous respect for Johnny Depp as an artist, and I hope people see that." The statement was measured, perhaps intentionally so, leaving room for interpretation but offering no condemnation. Depp's publicist later issued a short note, saying that the actor values meaningful interviews, and that passion can sometimes be mistaken for hostility. It was an attempt to soften the narrative without denying what had happened. The official episode that aired later in the week included only parts of the conversation, carefully edited to remove the sharpest exchanges. Still, the rumors had already spread, and clips from the unedited taping allegedly leaked online, fueling further speculation. For Depp, the moment seemed to symbolize a recurring struggle between his artistic sensitivity and his weariness with the media machine. He has long been known as a man who lives on the edge between vulnerability and rebellion, and this confrontation seemed to crystallize that duality. For some viewers, it reinforced the image of a misunderstood artist lashing out at a world that refuses to see beyond tabloid narratives. For others, it raised questions about his professionalism and readiness to navigate the spotlight again. In the weeks that followed, industry insiders debated what the moment meant for Depp's carefully managed comeback. Some felt that it might even enhance his mystique, reminding fans of the raw authenticity that had defined him since his early days. Others worried it might reignite the controversies he had worked so hard to move past. Yet, as with most things involving Johnny Depp, the truth probably lies somewhere in between, a mixture of vulnerability, pride, and the restless spirit of a man who refuses to conform to expectations. Those who know Depp well say that he has always had a complicated relationship with interviews. He sees them as performances in their own right, but ones where he doesn't control the script. That tension often produces moments of brilliance or discomfort, sometimes both. What happened on Entertainment Tonight was perhaps inevitable, a collision between a cautious interviewer doing his job and a deeply introspective artist determined not to be reduced to soundbites. By the time the story had begun to fade from headlines, Depp had already moved on to his next project, seemingly unfazed. But for those who witnessed the exchange firsthand, It remained one of the most charged moments in recent television memory, a raw glimpse of an artist still at war with fame, truth, and the media's unrelenting curiosity.